There are certain stories in the news that simply ought to leave us horrified. And today we're going to look at two. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to Schola Fides. My name's Hutch, and we're going to look at the news together. So, we have this article here from The Source. The headline reads, "Wrongfully convicted man exonerated after 43 years on death row." Now, this article's a little bit older. It was first published on July 1st, 2019, but I think it's worth taking a look at. So, here's the body of the article. Charles Ray Finch, 81, has been exonerated after having been wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death for a robbery and murder in North Carolina. U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit found that Mr. Finch is, quote, actually innocent, end quote, of the robbery murder of a grocery store clerk for which he was wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death in 1976. The court found out that the forensic testimony used was unreliable. The eyewitness, who, quote, had cognitive issues, struggled with alcoholism, and had issues with short-term memory recall, end quote, never told authorities the suspect has facial hair, and Finch does. The eyewitness changed his description to match Finch's during the testimony at trial. Additionally, Finch's lawyer provided evidence that the store clerk was killed with a pistol, not a shotgun, and evidence contradicted the prosecution's claims that the shells found at the crime scene matched a shotgun shell found in Mr. Finch's car. This new evidence, the federal appeals court concluded, not only undercuts the state's physical evidence, but it also discredits the reliability of Jones. In May, a federal court judge ordered for Charles Ray Finch to be released and then dropped all charges in June. Mr. Finch's attorney, Jim Coleman, said he asked every major state official to review the case for more than 15 years. And here comes one of the most horrifying sentences that I can imagine. Quote, "The worst thing that we encounter in the work that we do are indifferent officials. Police officers, sheriffs, prosecutors, and judges who think that justice has been done when there is a conviction, and nothing that happens after a conviction matters," he says. Finch, who was unable to walk out on his own, was rolled out in a wheelchair. Well, as terrible as a murder is, that story is, in my estimation, just as horrifying. But there's more. I want to take a look at another article, this one from the Houston Chronicle. Now, we won't be reading all of this one, but the headline reads, "Ex-death row prisoner Alfred Brown moves to restart civil suit after Texas comptroller refuses request for compensation." This article was written by Carrie Blackinger. Here's the body of the article. Attorneys for freed death row inmate Alfred Dwayne Brown are seeking to resume a federal lawsuit against Houston and Harris County for allegedly hiding evidence that could have kept the Harris County man from going to prison. Initially filed in June 2017, the legal claim had been on hold for more than a year, while Special Prosecutor John Raley probed the case to figure out whether Brown was, quote, actually innocent, end quote, and entitled to money for the years he spent behind bars for the slaying of Houston police officer Charles Clark. Even after Raley's report cleared the former prisoner and a Harris County judge formally declared Brown innocent, officials with the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts said on Monday that Brown still won't qualify for state compensation. The state's refusal to dole out the nearly $2 million Brown could have been entitled to under state law came as a surprise to the former prisoner's legal team, and now they've decided to forge ahead with the civil lawsuit. Quote, "It's been 16 years since Dwayne was put behind bars and 4 since he was released," end quote, said Brown's North Carolina-based civil attorney, Kate Edwards, who filed the 7-page motion late Thursday. Quote, "He should not have to wait any longer to pursue his claims against the entities and people who unlawfully put him there." Well, I have to say that I completely agree, but it is worth looking at what the Bible has to say about this sort of thing. And so there are two things that I believe need to be said. The first is from Genesis chapter 9, where God blesses Noah after the flood has ended. Beginning in verse 5 of chapter 9, we read this: "And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of every man. At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of a man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man." You see, the terrible thing about murder is that murder is an assault on the imago Dei, on the image of God. That is the right of every individual. That is to live in peace and safety, and to have the image of God within them honored and recognized. And because it is an assault on the image of God, it is ultimately not just an assault on man, but it is ultimately an assault on God himself. But furthermore, there is the question of the death penalty and whether or not under the New Testament or New Covenant we have any right to see men executed. Well, Romans answers that question for us in Romans chapter 13. Where Paul, writing about the civil magistrate, that is the civil power, the government, says this: "For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil." So we see from our text that we've looked at first that there is a biblical basis for the death penalty. But that's not all that there is to say on this subject. The law that is given to Moses has something to say about this as well. And this is what we read in the 19th chapter of Deuteronomy. This is beginning at verse 15. Moses writes this. It says, "One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, in any sin that he sinneth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. If any false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and behold, if the witness be a false witness, and hath testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shalt thou put the evil away from among you, and those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. And thine eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot." You see, what Moses is driving at here in Deuteronomy is also the reality that we would recognize that there are individuals who testify falsely. And so if someone has testified falsely against someone, and the penalty for the crime that that individual is being charged with is death, and if they were convicted, they would be sentenced to death, then the Bible tells us that the proper way to deal with that false witness is to put them to death. Now, I think by extension, we can argue from the totality of Scripture, from what we've read in Genesis 9, in Deuteronomy chapter 19, in Romans chapter 13, and elsewhere, a couple of things. The first is that the trial of a man for murder, when the possibility exists that his life may be taken, is an extraordinarily serious matter, and it's one that we should give the utmost diligence to. And second, we can see, according to Deuteronomy chapter 19, that one of the things that is required of the courts is a diligent inquisition, which is an investigation. That is a diligent investigation into the truth of the matter, and that no man should be put to death on flimsy evidence. And of course, we've seen the flimsy evidence that was presented in our first case here, which was mentioned at the root, where Charles Ray Finch was exonerated, as well as here, where Alfred Brown has been exonerated as well. You see, as Christians, we're supposed to be concerned with justice, and justice includes the death penalty for murderers who have been proven to be murderers. But justice also includes making sure that those who have been wrongfully imprisoned see justice as well. And so it is a terrifying thing that these men were wrongfully convicted, and it's more heartbreaking that one of them, Mr. Alfred Brown of Texas, is being denied rightful compensation. You see, Christians need to be concerned with all justice, not just with the justice that makes us comfortable. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around for the end of the video. I just want to say thank you for all of your support. And guys, if you're being helped by the content that I'm producing, please subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates. Give the video a like, and if you've got questions, leave them in the comments section below. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope you have. So thank you all. God bless.